At one point during this test, one of these models just stopped, gave up, white flag. It wouldn't even attempt to generate the clip I was asking for. I guess its parent company would need to be worth $5 trillion for that to happen. And you might have seen some really great things about this model, by the way, but honestly, you know what, I'll talk about that issue when we get to it. It's called a hook, don't hate the player, hate the game. While all of the new AI video Omni models are powerful, they also happen to cost an absolute fortune. Recently, however, some more affordable options have opened up, with models like Seedance Mini and Gemini Omni Flash. So I put both of them, along with the always reasonably priced Kling Omni, through a series of stress tests to see which ones can actually compete with the big boys, and which ones can rot at the bottom of the bargain bin. And I'm not here to be a fanboy. Where these models are lacking, I'm gonna let you know. We're starting off super simple, a faceless multi-shot text-to-video culinary sequence about one of my favorite subjects, chocolate chip pancakes. For all of the tests today, I gave each model the exact same inputs and prompts and 4 attempts to stick the landing. Kling is the oldest model of the bunch, so seniors eat first. Here is what I think was the best outcome of the 4 pancake tries. That wasn't terrible, and it certainly followed the basic instructions I prompted for. There are 3 shots that are clearly about the stages of making chocolate chip pancakes. Although each of the Kling generations seem to insist upon dumping the chocolate chips directly into the batter already in the frying pan, bold strategy, Kling, we'll see if it works out for you. I'm also not super thrilled with how not appetizing the chocolate chips wind up looking in the pancakes, both while flipping and once complete. Although in 2 shots, the chocolate chips disappear entirely during the flipping part. I think the thing that stands out most in all of these Kling generations is that the on-screen text infographics are garbled nonsense. I'm not even sure what this is supposed to be, how the Spice Guild communicates? I use Kling a ton, there's a link to it below. It's a reliable model, but for text to video there are better options, and you definitely don't want to see it try and spell. Let's see how Seedance Mini performed, which I tested via OpenArt. There's a link to that as well below if you want to check them out. Okay, the first thing that jumped out to me was that it actually managed to make legible text that said actual words. I think the hero shot at the end looked pretty solid, although it is missing chocolate chips entirely, much like most of the flipping shots throughout all of the Seedance Mini generations. Chocolate chip consistency was a clear weakness throughout. And when I say throughout, I mean it, because every single shot started with what are clearly coffee beans. These are not chocolate chips. These are coffee beans. That is not an opinion thing. These are coffee beans. I like coffee as much as the next guy, but not directly in my pancakes. No thank you, ByteDance. Also, 2-handed skillet? Are you sure about that? I need an espresso. Maybe the conversational agentic Gemini Omni Flash robot can order one for me while I review its outputs on this test. Hollywood's probably not cooked, but those pancakes certainly are. Once I navigated some negotiations with the Google Video Butler, I managed the most consistent and good-looking results so far. Minus one surprise waffle flip, it didn't really fail at anything. The text looks good, the batter looks battery, the chips look chippy, although none of these models seem to figure out how to evenly distribute chips within a pancake. Gemini Omni's music was on point, if a bit generic, and I really do like the feel of a couple of these camera moves and edits. Easily the most foodfluencer hero shots at the end too. Unlike the other examples so far, however, the Google results are limited to 10 seconds rather than 15. But at least for this text-to-video multi-shot test, I think the Gemini Omni Flash model wins. Ever so slightly. Oh boy, in this next test, one of these models really falls on its face. Image-to-video isn't exactly making full use of an Omni model's potential, but one of the great things about an inexpensive model is being able to use it for lots of different tasks. Here I'm using a prompt from Twitter creator Michael Rabone designed to send basic objects into Transformer robot mode. I had this mechanical crab sitting around from a previous project and figured it could be more than meets the eye. Gemini Omni Flash is up first this time. that's more or less fine. Although I do think that the camera move in the middle felt a bit awkward. That kind of thing happened more than a few times with the Google model. There were a few morphy spots in the background that I didn't love, and one generation came with a cinematically blatant bit of unrequested copyright infringement. It's your model, Alphabet, not mine. Overall, I think the sound effects are great, and the transformation animation looked pretty spot on. Certainly an acceptable output for a budget model. Okay, Kling me. What's going on? Why is this happening? Kling, why have you forsaken me? I really don't know what to say. The sound effects are cool, but whatever this smoke mirage hallucination stuff is, it isn't a Transformer animation. I'm still gonna lean on Kling as a workhorse model for more straightforward shots, but sometimes this legacy Omni model really does lose the plot. Obviously, I've seen the Transformers movies, so I'm using the term plot loosely. Let's see what kind of robots in disguise action Seedance Mini has in store for us. Okay, that's easily the best outcome I've seen so far for this test. It's really leaning into the movie style part of the prompt. It has a very 24 frames a second feel, and all of the shots have this Michael Bayhem style hero orbit going on. Super cinematic. I don't know if I love all of the transforming and untransforming and back and forth that happens with the various parts of the robot, but the sound effects are on point, and for a budget mini model, I think Seedance does what I asked it to do. Win for Team ByteDance on this one. This next test is about dynamic dialogue and lip syncing. Around a year ago, this concept was pretty astonishing, but today I think it's something we should expect from any cutting-edge video model, even if it is a mini fast or turbo version of one. And I'm really trying to push these models here. I timed this dialogue with a stopwatch to completely fill each generation's 15-second window with character speech in a job interview setting. So let's see who's getting hired. Seedance Mini is first.
I'm assuming this is the first of 5 to 8 interviews for this position that I'll be asked to do. At some point, I'll be required to design a full sales campaign, which you will both use and not compensate me for. 2 weeks after hearing absolutely nothing of substance, I will see you in a promoted LinkedIn post advertising for the exact position I'm interviewing for today.
Okay, what went well there was that the model managed to get all of the dialogue out. There were a couple of slurred words, but more or less, the diction was on point. The woman's face, and especially her mouth, were full of floaters and hallucinations. Honestly, I think that could come down to the 720p resolution cap of Seedance Mini. In a medium shot like this, there really aren't a ton of pixels for the model to work with. I think the voice sounds good. I think the performance is really good. I wouldn't consider this output suitable for a final result, but it makes for a pretty compelling proof of concept before spending big boy bucks on Seedance Full. Have I mentioned that Gemini Omni Flash is too many words for a name, and it's up next?
I'm assuming this is the first of 5 to 8 interviews for this position that I'll be asked to do. At some point, I'll be required to design a full sales campaign, which you will both use and not compensate me for.
Well, speaking of shortening word counts, 10 seconds isn't remotely enough time for 15 seconds worth of dialogue. And I really think that's a problem, Google. Seedance 2.5 is going to be out in no time, and that's going to have a 30-second cap. That's 3 whole generations from this model. We are in the second half of 2026. A frontier video model should not be limited to a 10-second generation at this point. I'm sorry, it just shouldn't. Not good enough, Googs, or whatever the NASDAQ calls you.
Absolutely, linksalutely nothing of substance today.
I do actually really like the performance in this clip, and the lip sync is pretty spot on as well. There is the familiar VO-esque softness to the mouth features and teeth, really to everything that's animating within the frame, along with the industry trailing generation link. That softness is kind of a hallmark of Google video models at this point, and not in a good way. Can you tell I have a lot of thoughts about where the Google AI video model ecosystem is at this point? Anyway, I really hope Kling does a little bit better here.
I'm assuming this is the first of 5 to 8 interviews for this position that I'll be asked to do. At some point, I'll be required to full sales campaign, which you will not compensate me for. 2 weeks after hearing absolute thing of substance, we'll see you in a promoted LinkedIn post advertising for the exact position I'm interviewing for today.
I guess it more or less got all of the dialogue in, though it did butcher a lot of the dialogue in the process. Kling lip sync has always had a tendency to drift the further along the generation goes. And here it goes off the rails around 4 or 5 seconds in. Although to be honest, it was never really on point at any point. And again, this was the best of 4 attempts. Very mushy lip sync here and a tinny sounding voice. I overall like the performance of the character and how outside of the desynced mouth, the Kling model came up with a nice looking generation, like it often does. I really like the random office guy that walks by in the background. It added some real life to the scene, but I would be hard pressed to hire this output as acceptable. None of these budget models did a great job here. Congratulations, Hollywood, you were uncooked forever, at least for now. Keep an eye on your local thumbnails for further updates. One of the killer applications of Omni models is the ability to generate a multi-shot sequence from a single storyboard image. I generated a sample Nano Banana 2 storyboard from one of my current favorite Midjourney 8.1 prompts, Fuzzpunk, and I plugged it into each of these models with a very simple prompt. Gemini Omni Flash is up first.
We are Fuzzpunk! Tear it all down! We won't stop!
That was certainly acceptable, although it had mad how do you do fellow kids vibes. Color me not shocked, the Google model is a bit of a cringe boomer. From a more technical perspective, I would say that the characters look similar to those seen in the storyboard, but certainly not identical. They aren't quite as scruffy, just ever so slightly washed over with a thin layer of corporate oversight. But I want to be clear, these are all solid enough. I don't love the vibes Gemini Omni Flash is defaulting to, but it certainly understood the assignment, and I can see why so many people are excited about it. It's cheap, and it's very strong when it does what you want. Now for Seedance Mini. That was fine, but just kind of fine. Certainly not perfect. All of the Seedance generations have a bit of a stop-motion feel on this one, which is okay. I thought the characters were pretty clearly puppets, but they could plausibly be stop-motion characters. I'm mostly fine with it. The animation itself is very precise, which some models struggle with, especially on fast-moving things like these drumsticks. Those look great here, but one strange flaw showed up repeatedly. The storyboard frames are pretty straightforward, including this wide establishing shot of all three characters. But Seedance Mini just couldn't seem to wrap its AI head around the trio. Here, the orange puppet wound up with a second drum kit and a carbon copy of the purple guy's leg. Here we have a bonus puppet at the start and then another bonus puppet at the end. Obviously, the improvised lyrics were basically gibberish, but that's pretty standard. I'm not really gonna fault it for that. I think Seedance Mini will give you some decent outcomes with storyboard inputs, but you may need to run a handful of generations first, or possibly do some prompt tuning. Kling Omni is up last, and I'm honestly not sure what I should expect. Okay, that had some issues. There were some hallucinations around the paws, as well as anything moving reasonably quickly, like the drumsticks. But I actually think that's my favorite outcome of all three models for this test. I don't know how else to describe it, but that's just how I envisioned a puppet band named Fuzzpunk would look and move and sound. I think I'm basically giving Kling a win on vibes here. And while vibes might not be a substitute for output quality, Kling does often output some high-quality shots that don't feel like they just walked right out of a corporate boardroom, all while coming in at a credit cost roughly equivalent to most companies' mini models. It feels like I've been saying this for a couple of years at this point, but Kling is consistently an AI video workhorse. The only tool I reach for more frequently than Kling is probably Topaz, and that's because I upscale everything and they're the industry standard. I'm actually a creative partner with them, so you can click on one of my referral links in the description or click on one of my videos about their upscaling models. Shameless plug over, I promise. Psych, more shameless plugs. I've also recently been doing videos for the OpenArt YouTube channel, including one about Seedance 2.0, where I unveiled my latest and greatest Omni Video Catechism, which I call Test 1066, in which I feed a video model the entire 230 feet of the Bayou Tapestry and copy and paste in the entire Wikipedia entry for the Battle of Hastings. Spoiler warning, Harold dies. Okay, for Kling and Country, go! Who among us doesn't remember the classic Centaur charge from the Battle of Hastings? This also wasn't much of a multi-shot sequence. It's more or less a drone shot of a massive army facing no one, and then a hallucination charge fitting of Burning Man when the salmonella starts hitting. All of the Kling results were more or less morphin messes of people standing around, which kind of makes sense, because Kling isn't capable of accepting the entire prompt input. I've been in contact with folks from Kling for a hot minute, and one of the things I've been telling them for over a year is that their interface has a very very limited character count maximum. It doesn't even matter if you use an outside aggregator, your prompt just gets cut off, as you can see from the yellow text here. One of the benefits to Omni models is the ability to add multiple inputs and direct the model via a detailed prompt. Kind of difficult to do when your prompt gets cut off. A modern Omni model should be able to parse an entire Wikipedia page, which is exactly why I do this test. But it isn't even an option for Kling because of what appears to be a basic interface issue. Kling, it's been a while, fix this already. Speaking of squirrely interfaces that get on my nerves, Gemini Omni Flash via Google Flow is up next. Was at least fun. One of these generations got filtered for content reasons. We'll get to more of that later. I pixelated some of this, even though I don't see any actual blood. But here you can see the arrow King Harold takes to the dome, while historically accurate, doesn't come across as very physically accurate, as it just morphs through his face. Although I do really appreciate the little bomb whistle it has on the way in. The brutal medieval combat throughout this scene isn't particularly brutal, medieval, or realistic. Nothing really has weight, people are just sort of swinging axes around. I do want to show you one outtake from another run. King Harold, after apparently being very well arrowed, just stands in the middle of the battle and waits for this guy to crank him in the head with a sword. It's not a very good generation, but it's funny. Thankfully, there wasn't any blood, so I could show you that one on YouTube. All of the combat in Gemini Flash outputs is pretty comical, or just censored out of existing. The outputs that are here are competent, however. The Google model was clearly able to parse all of the context overloading information I gave it, and more or less lands on the actual historical ending of the actual Battle of Hastings, where, according to 8th grade, King Harold does get shot in the face with an arrow. Okay, Seedance, venture forth thine mini model.
Fight on!
Obviously, I had to censor the end of that. Seedance gets pretty gory. I really love that beat in the middle where King Harold calls out, "Don't worry, guys, I'm still alive. It's good. Keep fighting." Nice dramatic irony. I dig it. I like the castle up top. Very cinematic. There are some hallucinations. Basically, any projectile in the air is a best guess situation for Seedance Mini. The combat animations don't make a ton of sense, but they at least feel like they have weight. I really like the horses. They feel like horses. And in general, all of the character and camera motion is more believable when compared to the Google model. Again, for good measure, at the very end, somebody just smacks King Harold in the head. I'm not sure if Nicole Kidman's gonna be catching this one at the local AMC anytime soon, but I would describe this as a beautiful mess that demonstrates Seedance Mini's ability to parse all of the information I shoved at it, and as always, the open art interface to Seedance was really nice. One of the selling points of Omni video models is their ability to edit existing video content. In fact, if you listen to the internet, Gemini Omni Flash is practically designed just for this task. So I decided to see how they would all fare editing yours truly. All I'm asking is for each of these models to turn my head into the head of a chicken, complete with some nonsensical clucking. Simple formula. I gave each model that video input, as well as a couple of source images for my future chicken-headed self, and prompted accordingly. Okay, Seedance, show everybody how this is done. All I'm asking is for each of these models to turn my head into the head of a chicken, complete with some nonsensical clucking. I'm not sure what else I could really ask for out of this shot. I guess the lip syncing is a little soft, although it's beak syncing, so that's a whole other matter. But I definitely have a chicken head, and I definitely have some nonsensical clucking. Outtakes feature some neck nightmares, adventures with my glasses, and some additional neck nightmares. Outside of confusing coffee beans for chocolate chips, Seedance Mini pretty much did everything I asked it to do in all of these tests. And it did it while costing roughly 1/5 of its older brother Seedance 2's credit cost. A-. Seedance Mini is a top flight model. You should use it, and I know I'm gonna use it a ton. Kling! All I'm asking is for each of these models to turn my head into the head of a chicken, complete with some nonsensical clucking. So there's not any kind of lip or beak syncing at all. I'm not sure if my head is being replaced with the head of a chicken, as much as it is being smothered with the mangled corpse of the memory of a chicken. Meanwhile, all I'm asking is for each of these models to turn my head into the head of a chicken, complete with some nonsensical clucking. Sure, why not? In all honesty, this test would probably be a better fit for Kling motion control, but I would have to do a lot more work of replacing my head with the chicken head and a start frame and all the rest. That obviously would be a different test and not this test. To be brutally honest, Kling didn't do all that great today. But with that being said, it's still one of the models I use more than anything else, especially for B-roll. It's a strong model and you can definitely rely on it for more lightweight editing tasks and straightforward image-to-video scenarios. Probably don't ask it to spell or sustain lip syncing for extended stretches. Look, this is a 6 or 7 month old model, which in AI terms is a billion years. I give it a B. It's cheap and you'd be surprised how often it gets the job done. But seriously, fix that prompt character limit already. And lastly, we have the exciting results from Google's Gemini Omni Flash. Wait, what's this? It's just nothing. It just did nothing. Seriously. Yeah, seriously. Just like I teased at the opening, Gemini decided the only winning move was not to play. This editing specialist kept failing over and over again. And of course, I'm doing all of this in Google Flow, complete with the watermarks and this agentic Gemini assistant in tow, which more often than not just kind of feels like it's in my way, but at least in this instance, it was able to explain to me why the generations were failing. At first, I thought it might be some sort of deepfake protection, but according to the Google robot, the failures were by design. I'm gonna let the Google robots speak for themselves when I can here, but apparently the complexities of beak, syncing, and clucking just seem too hard. Or as the Flowbot put it,
requested synchronization is physically impossible for the current model to map correctly.
And is
designed to return an error rather than a broken or nonsensical output.
Hey, though, bonus points to Google AI Studio for letting me select that ridiculous accent. I guess it was all worth it. Again, Kling happily spit this out. But apparently Gemini Omni Flash, if and when it decides the outcome won't meet its high standards, simply surrenders and outputs nothing. Or as the model itself puts it,
by prioritizing safe or high fidelity outputs through these internal gates, the model effectively removes the possibility of happy accidents, weird glitches, or the specific type of failure that helps a user understand exactly where the tool's limits are. Instead of showing you a messy attempt at a chicken man, it's opting for a technical refusal.
I know it's like haha funny Will Smith eating spaghetti, but this output is actually important. AI video models are an entirely new tool set, and we will often learn as much from failures as we will from successes. Shoehorning elaborate large language models onto the front end of these models can be helpful at times, maybe, but if they're serving as some sort of quality control butler, I don't want anything to do with them. When I sit down with a new model, one of my goals is to see how I can break it. I'm not looking for a curated experience. This isn't a Chuck E. Cheese amusement park. I quote the Google model again.
The model is being too precious about its own output quality and blocking the creative process in the name of technical validation.
And I think that sucks. And let's be honest, it could just be lying to me and none of that's true. Also, on the subject of the robot, that's the only way to interface with this model in Google Flow now. I am stuck with the robot even if I go back to old projects like stuff I did last summer. I cannot simply adjust my settings, throw in a JSON prompt, and hit go. I have to have a conversation with the agentic helper whether I like it or not. Did I mention the watermarks? Google, this sucks. The robot seemed positive that the problem was that my prompt was just too technically sophisticated, so it kept trying to rewrite it for me, giving me outputs like this.
All I'm asking is for each of these models to turn my head into the head of a chicken, complete with some nonsensical clucking.
That's not what I'm asking for. Who's this random dude? Also, it wasn't even that good. Why is it not editing my video? I thought this was the AI video editing specialist. You're just not using it right. It's for editing, so edit already. This sucks. When I allowed the robot to alter my prompt in a way that removed the bit about the clucking, I have no idea why the clucking was such a problem, by the way. It basically spit out sort of what I wanted, albeit minus the clucking and not all that great. All I'm asking is for each of these models to turn my head into the head of a chicken, complete with some nonsensical clucking. It's just sticking a chicken head in front of my head. My head is still back there. It doesn't know what to do with glasses. It thinks I'm a Texas Rangers fan. Oh, and it's only 6 seconds, not 10. No extending. Omni Flash doesn't support that feature yet. Look, this is kind of what I wanted, but it was a nightmare to get there. Also, it's ignoring the chicken reference. I feel like that was part of the negotiation. Why am I negotiating with a robot? Make my video. Seedance makes my video. Kling makes something. Google makes robot small talk and surrenders for fear of failure. It's clearly not a deepfake filter, it's putting a chicken head on me just fine. This sucks. Pure editing? I guess with that it's okay. I can put a chicken on my shoulder. Neat. That wasn't the test. This sucks, Google. This sucks. Look, I don't like the interface. The old interface was better. I don't like the robot needing to be involved in everything. And a reasonable portion of the time, I don't find the output all that world-changing anyway. It's basically VO 3.2 if the model decides to grace me with an output at all. Gemini Omni Flash, C-, and I'm being charitable. And I'm not entirely sure who it's for. Vibe editing? You just tell it what you want without bothering on the details. Who needs that exactly? Housewives and long-haul truckers? It's not me. I'm sure this model has its strengths, but from my testing, you can spend just about the same amount of credits on any aggregator and use Seedance Mini instead, which is exactly what I think you should do, at least until Kling 3.5 comes out. Maybe that's too brutal of a review, but hey, I'm a small unmonetized channel, so I got nothing to lose. Seriously, click this playlist. I could use all the help I can get. That's gonna do it for me today. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.